About a year and a half ago, I introduced my review of the then newly released Greycat ROC by saying you should go out and buy one in-game right away. But as with many things, time can change a lot, which begs the question, is the Greycat ROC still worth buying? I'm Forrester, and in this video I try to answer that question by spending some time taking another look at it. The Greycat ROC is a light mining rover specifically for dealing with hand minables like hadonite. As we're in ground rover territory, the usual format is adapted a little for this video. We'll briefly cover off a tour and aesthetics, look at handling and visibility, examine the experience of mining, spend some time on operating costs and profits, and then cover off an overall verdict. As always, there are timestamps in the video description so you can find the part you're looking for. And if you're one of the 3/4 of people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, well, you might like to, so you can be notified when new Star Citizen videos go live every Tuesday and Friday. Starting by looking at the Greycat ROC, the industrial, rugged look and feel becomes very obvious on first inspection. The driver's seat and door up front leave you feeling exposed to the elements and very close to the mining that's going on. Around the back you can find a box with access to the internal storage of the ROC, which is particularly handy for transferring mined rocks to your ship inventory, which probably has even more storage available. So, all in all, what you see is what you get with the ROC, a very functional, no-frills mining rover. Driving the ROC is also nothing special. Don't get me wrong, it's fine. In fact, it's faster than you might think in a straight line once you get going, but it's unlikely to set any land speed records anytime soon. The wheels take a little time to turn when you press a control input, and accordingly you only really get your tightest possible turning circles by manoeuvring while stationary. That's handy for somewhat precisely positioning your ROC in your ship, but means you end up taking a little time to do so. Moreover, once you pick up speed, hard turns run the risk of flipping your ROC on its side, although sometimes you can use the mining arm to recover yourself. Because you're up front in the glass canopy, visibility is fairly good. There's also an integrated set of beam lights which can help to illuminate your path, although the angle isn't ideal and sometimes the light misses things that are very close to you. The mining UI does help here too, highlighting nearby minables in your heads-up display, which reduces your reliance on having to physically see everything. The ROC is geared up towards grabbing hand minables. The idea behind this rover is that it's much more effective in the places where you can get a ROC to than say a hand mining multi-tool, and to some extent that's true. The challenge that has developed since first release is that those hand minables are much harder to find. Whilst the ROC does have a scanner aboard, the relatively slow traverse speed means you're probably more likely to use your ferry ship to find minables, and some feel more successful than others. Your best bet seems to be flying low and relatively slow, pinging regularly, and looking for something to pop up within about a kilometre or so. If you know where you're looking, it's not too bad, but sometimes you can be flying for some time, not finding anything, and getting a little frustrated. If you are of the more patient ilk, because the ROC travels a little bit slower, it does seem to have a higher success rate of finding the things it's looking for, just you'll probably take longer to get there and back. And speaking of frustrated, the extraction mode on the ROC can also be a little frustrating from time to time. Sometimes you'll be pointing your beam at a big stack of rocks, but failing to pick them up. Worse still are the times when it overcharges the ROC in mining road and scatters minables all over. All of that said, when it works, the ROC offers a much nicer experience than picking up every piece by hand, and the mining laser generally does a good job at breaking up the bigger rocks without too much hassle. And the ability to relatively easily transfer your mined goods to ship inventories now is a huge quality of life improvement for the ROC, and potentially means you can be out mining for longer, with a bigger payout at the end of it. And talking of payout, it makes sense to talk about what the ROC can do for your wallet. The key positive in this area is rock mining is relatively cheap to do, especially once you've paid for the rover initially. Essentially, you're just paying for the fuel costs of ferrying it about in whatever ship you choose, which can be very low. And unlike mainstream mining, which requires the use of a refinery to maximise your profits, you can just dump your goods on many an unsuspecting vendor across the verse. If you forgive the pun, a good description for the ROC would be as a good rock-bottom vehicle, where if you've completely exhausted your funds, you could bring out a ROC and start to build up a capital base again. It's probably not as profitable as high-end combat missions, or even prospector or mole mining in the current patch, but if you stick with it, you can make a decent amount of credits per hour, probably around the 100,000 mark. Although, if you are making more, I'd love to read about that in the comments. There are a few other points worth mentioning about the ROC. Firstly, if you use eye tracking software like Toby, the mining laser will follow your eyes in default targeting mode. On the one hand, that's incredibly helpful. On the other hand, it can be hard to get used to, and I found myself changing the targeting mode so I could look around whilst mining. Whilst the ROC doesn't technically need a ship to ferry it around, most players will use one due to the slow traverse speed of the rover itself. And clearly, needing a specific ship with a cargo bay large enough to accommodate a rover, like a Cutlass, Constellation or Mercury Star Runner to name a few, adds a lot to the potential cost of running this ship. It's worth mentioning that some of these options are rentable, but will reduce your profit margin if you rely on that. And as well as a ferry ship, you also probably need a decent spacesuit to operate it, especially in some of the more extreme temperatures. And then there's the bugs which seem to impact the ROC, including a very frustrating one with the extraction laser. Back at the start of this video, I referenced the opening statement from my first review of the Greycat ROC, which said you should go out and buy it right away. I wouldn't be quite so enthusiastic now, but it's still a decent vehicle to purchase in-game and can make back that investment fairly quickly, with a little luck and perseverance. You can buy the ROC for just under 200,000 Alpha UEC, which makes it one of the cheapest purchases you could make. It's also available for real money for about $50, although I really wouldn't recommend it as a cash buy. So should you still buy one? Maybe. It's a good entry-level way to get into the mining gameplay loop, with options for making money above that of hand mining. But you would need a good deal of patience in the current patch, so it's not for everybody. But do you agree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button as it helps me to know what you're finding most helpful. Otherwise, as always, thank you for watching.